Good morning, everyone. I see folks are coming into our monthly meeting now as we begin. Want to start as an introduction and welcome everyone today. My name is Alan Rising. I'm the current chair of CASH, and so welcome you to our very first state monthly meeting for 2025. So, new year, new opportunities. New possibilities with bonds that passed up and down the state, something like $56 billion in total, including state and local bonds, all passed in November. And so it's just an absolutely fantastic time in schools right now with wonderful opportunities to help support and build upon the great work that each and every one of the school districts are doing up and down our state. So this is a wonderful time. And I really take the opportunity to welcome you to 2025. Uh, with that, I do want to start with really acknowledgement and sending out our heartfelt prayers and wishes to all of those communities that have been impacted by the fires. We'll have folks from CDE today, John Gordon, and I'm sure he'll talk a little bit about what they're working on with the fires. But I want to take my own personal moment and send out my prayers and thoughts to all of those communities and families that have been impacted by the fires. To date, I believe it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 11 to 12 schools that have been either completely or partially destroyed due to the fires. And it'll require all of us to come together to really help support those communities to ensure that all of those educational facilities are brought back and are available to help support the recovery and the regrowth of those communities. So as we start really recognizing the devastation that's still occurring. The fires are not out. In fact, there's some new ones down in San Diego that are starting, and we're hoping that those stay small, and we're able to get a handle on those so they don't turn into the firestorms that we suffered in LA County. Again, welcome everyone, and to this first meeting in 2025. So with that, we'll jump into the next slide. Uh, just reminding everyone that we have a web shop tomorrow. Excuse me. And we're going to dig a little, excuse me, and we're going to deal a little bit into passing of local school bonds. And so we'll be taking the second step into what to do after you pass your local school bond. We're going to talk a lot about delivery method options and procurement of your various different projects and some options that are available so that you better understand how to actually move a lot of these bond proceeds forward and study and delve into the advantages and disadvantages of the various different delivery options. One last thing that I neglected to mention at the beginning was as we move into our presentations, we do want to hear from each and every one of you. We want to hear your questions if you have for a particular presenter, but you'll have to put those into the chat. You are muted, but we do want to hear from you. The chat feature is live. We'll be monitoring that as we go through the presentations, and we'll be getting to as many of those questions as we possibly can. The agenda and the presentation were already shared. Thank you for presenting that. Thank you, Nance. And so we'll be able to move forward and address any questions that you may have. So with that, I think we're jumping to the next slide, which is our first presenter, which is California Department of Education, and we have John Gordon with us. Good morning, John.
Good morning. How are you? Hopefully everyone is doing well and getting off to a good start here with the new year. Alan, thank you for setting that up with the fires, and our thoughts and prayers are going out to those affected. I can share that my director Juan Morales and our branch chief Belgian, and I also believe representatives from the State Board of Education have been down in Southern California assisting um, with supporting efforts regarding the virus and school relocation. At this point, I really don't have too much to share, just because things are continually moving down there. Hopefully, there will be some resolution coming up, but this I'm sure is just really incredibly difficult. We do have a couple updates as it relates to some laws, and I Nancy and Ian may get a little bit deeper into it, but I did want to share because I know we've updated our websites pertaining to that. One is regarding the Civic Center Act. There was a provision that sunset it related to direct costs. So you should be aware of that. We've updated our web page pertaining to civic centers. I'll put that in the chat for folks so they can access that. So you should be aware of that. Working with perhaps your legal counsel to figure out exactly what that means. I don't necessarily interpret those types of things. The other thing that was pretty significant had to do with SB 937, which has to do with developer fees and when districts and other governmental agencies can access developer fees. In the past, it was when the permits were pulled. Now it's based on occupancy. There are some provisions that would give some type of exemption for school districts. And we've had our legal counsel look at them, uh, and and we've issued a statement on our CD website pertaining to it because it mentioned a 5-year plan, and the 5-year plan was something that was required under the LPP almost 30 years ago, certainly before my tenure here. And in fact, trying to look up some documents, electronic documents pertaining to it, and we don't have Lotus 123 anymore, so not able to access or find or open the old stuff. But I did have some hard copies. Was kind of cruising through that, and based on our uh, legal counsel, we are not in a position to approve 5-year plans since that requirement um, kind of went away when we came into the SFP. And so it's been kind of a weird situation with that government code in the respect that it's been amended several times, and since we went from the LPP to the SFP, but somehow this 5-year plan went a bit unchecked, and so we're hoping it will take some kind of legislative change to get in. Maybe there'll be some alignment with Proposition 2 in the facility master plan requirement. That'll be coming up here. Um, more to come on that, but I do have a web page. Again, I'll put that in a link for folks to take a look at. And want to see there were a few other things I just wanted to share. I know that we're actively engaging in conversations with OPSE regarding the implementation of Proposition 2, and we'll continue to support OPSE in some of those things as we are legislatively mandated to collaborate with them, on some of these things. So more to come on that. And the probably last thing I want to share, I don't recall if I shared it last month, but I did shuffle around a little bit certain county assignments as I onboarded a new field rep, and then bringing her on, Jennifer Morse, who's down in the San Bernardino Riverside area. Onboarding her now that I'm ready to get her out into the field. I kind of relooked at the larger layout and made some changes. So I also put in the chat a link of where all the different county assignments are for the different field reps. I know in the East Bay there's been some changes, and as well as some areas in Central Valley and even Southern California. Now that I have Jennifer on board, she and Angel Dowdy will be really the two field reps down in Southern California. So I think outside of that, I don't have much to share. We're hoping to be at Cash here next month, and looking forward to seeing some folks in person. So with that, that's my update.
Great. Thank you, John. I appreciate it. I don't see any questions that have come in the chat. I do appreciate, I have to really extend my thanks for all the great work that you and everyone from California Department of Education is doing to really respond to the needs of the LA County residents. So
Thank you.
I know it's an active situation. I know that you're out and teams are out looking at these school sites and communities now, but
Yeah.
I just know that everyone in CDE is doing all they can do to help those communities recover as quickly as possible. So thank you and all your team members in CDE for all that great work.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. So thank you, Brian. I think with that, I saw Ida Claire come up with, and she's with us today. Welcome, Ida. Good morning.
Good
And
morning.
and so we'll turn it over to you to give us a little update on what's happening in the Division of State Architect.
Thank you. Um, okay. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak to all of you. DSA is supporting our LA schools in their recovery from this devastating event. We do have staff on the ground right now that inspected sites Monday and Tuesday, preparing reports so that we can facilitate as quickly as possible transitioning school students into facilities for instruction. So if there's any of you out there who are affected by the fires and have questions, concerns that DSA can assist with, please reach out to me directly and we will respond accordingly as best we can in the context of working with Cal OES. Right now, we are still working with our response efforts through Cal OES and via mission tasks while the declared emergency is in effect. But you can always reach out to us directly and then we can get in motion what we need to do to mobilize to assist. A little bit about our DSA update. Welcome everyone again to a new year. DSA will be busy this year. As always, we do have a lot of work that is coming our way. We analyzed and saw that in 2024, between the March, June, and November elections, there were $42 billion in bonds, in state and local bonds passed. So that means that we're going to be busy, but we are ready to accept your work and streamline it through our processes as quickly as possible, utilizing all methods over time, our own staff, obviously, and consultant contracts. A little bit about our workload. We are, since the current fiscal year, which is July 1, we are at about 1,819 projects received. The greatest number of projects are both shared by Sacramento and Los Angeles. Greatest dollar volume is Oakland, as you can see, which means technically those need to be tend to be larger projects. But you can see that as of now, we've had about $6.58 billion in construction at the midpoint. If that continues, it's a very high dollar volume year. Typically, our volume's around the 10 to 11 billion. This is approaching, if you double that amount, close to 13. So you can see that we're busy. Okay, in December, this is a look at what we received in December. December was a very busy month, $1.4 billion in construction. Busiest office in dollar value is Sacramento. Total number of projects, San Diego. And so we are processing those applications now. This is technically the work that's on our desks being processed. When we're looking throughout the projected work of January, we have right now about $970 million planned that will be coming in. Of course, some of that might shift off into February if they are not actually going to submit. There is usually a little bit of a gap of what's actually submitted versus what's planned to be submitted. But if all projects come in, we're at $970 million for January. And then taking a look at February without having the final week, which I should really say the final day in February, because that's 2/28, we're looking at about 1 billion coming in February. So yes, busy. Quick reminder, we do have a change to in-office back check over-the-counter policy. Bring in your own equipment to connect to our guest network. Clients and design professionals can no longer use our Wi-Fi, our corp Wi-Fi. They have to use our guest Wi-Fi on their own devices. The request for plan sets, just a reminder, PRA, if you're a school district, you don't need to go through the PRA process, but we do need you to make sure that you fill out the appropriate information, which is by accessing these two links. First, the most important one is the authorization, so that when you do need a document request, it can proceed rather quickly because the authorization's already been provided. A little bit about emergency planning and preparedness. Cal OES has issued this fact sheet, and here's the link for it. I'll send this presentation to Cash so that they can distribute to all of you later today. But there is this safety assessment for schools after a disaster and the process of mission tasking that Cal OES prepared for public schools. They will typically send DSA as the safety assessment professional to provide that review. In fact, for this emergency right now in Los Angeles, we're also assisting with inspections on private schools, interestingly enough. But that's this describes the process fairly clearly. This I know I covered in December. Just a reminder, we have new forms for unreasonable hardship, technical and feasibility. Reminder that, excuse me, there's a new back check procedure for, the back check procedure for design professionals did not change, but it is a new document describing the process, which was a requested information by our design professionals. And just clarity on the electric vehicle charging station applications in IRCG 1. A little bit about workforce and student housing, real quick. This is repetitive as well. Please refer to our document so that your projects are designed for accessibility appropriately. You can ask for an access-only review if you decide to go through the local jurisdiction for your housing projects. DSA will provide an access-only review for a fee, but we will do that so that you can ensure your access is correct. We did upgrade PL 2401. It now encompasses workforce housing projects and community college student housing projects submitted to DSA. This is a really good policy document and describes on where DSA needs to get involved for on-campus projects. Existing building code, fire life safety provisions. Again, this is, we do not utilize these until it's the section is clarified. So right now, all that we permit is section 301.3.1, prescriptive compliance only. State Fire Marshal is in the process of clarifying the requirements for the California existing building code, fire life safety requirements. That's in the current package, which is up for adoption in February. But those changes, if adopted, won't be reflected until January 1st, 2026. And so this bulletin will be in effect until that time. The requirements for classroom locks, BU 2404, I covered this before as well. Right now, we haven't heard that there's been a determination of appropriation by the state, but when that happens, we will revise this bulletin. But if you are advancing the requirements in your projects and being proactive, right, we will still review to the requirements as they comply with Title 24 requirements. Green schoolyards, we have created our DSA Form 450 and our Bulletin 2403. This permits restrictions of path of travel improvements to 20% when certain conditions are met. This form is a compliance form, a compliance declaration form for the school district and the design professional that they attest to meeting specific requirements so that they can comply with the 20% of adjusted construction costs for path of travel improvements for green schoolyard projects. Obviously, any questions related to this, please address that to the local regional office, and they will check with our headquarters if there's questions that they can't answer. We're continuing with our project inspector program improvements. There are new regulatory requirements that are up for adoption in February at the commission meeting, which is part of our improvement program. But a lot of our focus has been placed on testing, increased testing, computer-based testing, providing the resources instead of having them bring their own, more training on DSA's learning management system. So these program improvements are continuing into 2025. Building standards rulemaking, our commission meeting, as I mentioned, it does say, January 14th through 16th. That was rescheduled to February due to the fires. So I will need to correct that before I send this document over, but they are scheduled for February 26th, 27th, and 28th. And that includes access compliance, administrative code requirements, structural safety requirements for schools, and existing building code requirements for schools. Our Cal Green provisions were passed by the Building Standards Commission in December, and those specifically had requirements. There was just some clarity on those requirements on existing provisions, and then there was the addition of carbon dioxide monitoring for community colleges. So not a significant package in green that was passed. Again, access, administrative code provisions, structural safety, and existing building code provisions are coming up for adoption in February. Sustainability plan review, just a reminder that this checklist must be on the documents when you submit your projects. And our sustainability education and outreach, we are still in the process of rebuilding our sustainability team due to some retirements, but we do have a new supervising architect in sustainability and are looking to hire a senior architect in sustainability. So hopefully that will be accomplished soon. And then we will look to getting back to our Sustainable School Showcase and also planning for the 2025 intervening code cycle for Cal Green. And then, of course, training on our DSA Academy, which is always offered for free and available to the public. And with that, I'm done. Any questions?
Great. Thank you,
I have
Ida.
a question for you, Ida.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
With the Moss Landing fire in Northern California, I'm just curious from a DSA perspective on lithium ion battery backup in California, and given the fires, knowing that our schools are kind of essential service, they're places of refuge, they're places of evacuation when we need to. Are we rethinking at all the idea of lithium batteries in schools, given the risks that some of our schools have with wildfire?
So all I can say, energy policy is established by the Energy Commission. So the requirement for batteries is the Energy Commission.
Agreed. Maybe I need that.
We
advocacy. Are we thinking about advocacy going in that direction?
We are engaging with them for the 2028 code. So unfortunately, you won't see any change to requirements till 2029, right? January 1st, 2029. And so we will address that concern. Ultimately, though, however, the Energy Commission does advance energy policy for the state. And so I don't know where that's going, but all I can tell you is that we are engaging actively with them more now than we ever have. And that's where we are. We're meeting actively with them on a lot of things, right? On appropriate requirements, getting feedback on what's actually happening in schools that we see. We can, bring that concern to them. Where it goes, I can't tell you.
No, I definitely think the wildfires in Southern California, and as a school district positioned up against the mountains, we're rethinking a lot of our own materials that we're using in schools, defensible space, thinking about wildfire prevention in a lot of different areas, but it also comes into conflict with a lot of our sustainability goals and didn't know if that was, high in your mind as well. And I'm glad to hear that. And thank you for the advocacy that you do on that front. So,
Yeah, it has
Yeah.
been raised as an issue to us, both internally and externally. And so we just need to go through the engagement, right, to ask the questions and see what can be improved, what can be, uh, addressing our concerns or bringing those concerns to the Energy Commission on behalf of um, on the schools.
Yeah.
thank you, Ida.
Thank
Appreciate it,
thank you,
as
folks.
always.
Yeah, I do think, just to underscore that, I do think it's important that those various different requirements are in alignment with each other so that we do have the safest facilities imaginable or possible, as well as the most energy effective and energy efficient facilities as well. I did have one other quick question, Ida. Recognizing that we had well over $50 billion of bonds that were passed in November, and clearly there's going to be an impact on DSA as those projects begin to mature and make it to DSA. Is there some thought about future staffing levels to be able to adjust to be able to address some of those needs so that we don't end up with a backlog that becomes untenable?
So there will be no backlog. I will tell you that the only backlog we're
Writing that
actually
down. I'm writing
anticipating.
that down now.
I know. The only backlog we're anticipating is once again in the end of this year, because of the code change, we are likely to get even a greater inordinate amount of projects at the end of the year to beat the next code cycle.
Yeah.
And we usually process those and get back on track into a timely manner within about 2 months. By February, we're already up to speed because we do utilize our consultant contracts, which are active. We do utilize overtime. And so we see that 6-week schedule allows us to plan for that. So when there are projects coming in, we can look at that 6 week ahead or 2 month ahead look out and start negotiating those contracts right away if we need to, or authorizing overtime right away if we need to address workload. We can hire on a temporary basis, but that's difficult to do. So because architects don't want to come on a limited term basis, and it takes an approval process to get that done. That's longer than like 2 months, and we need to justify it without demonstrating the workload that's coming, which is only 2 months ahead. We're working, right, on all these.
Yeah.
And I know that you're probably saying that sounds like a lot to go through. We have our methods right now to really plan that look ahead. And so we have the resources to contract, we have the contracts to issue, we have the overtime that we can issue. And since, for a while now, we haven't had those kind of delays. So we're keeping
I
an
just
eye on
know
it.
that there is a certain, I'll say, distaste that's happening out there when we go to contract review as opposed to in-house DSA plan reviewers. And so recognizing that you have to have that tool and that tool does help get over those increases. But with $50+ billion of bonds, it seems like we're going to have a pretty consistent flow of work. The governor has now committed to somewhere around $1.5 billion of state money by itself. And then you add on top of that a lot of the local dollars that will begin to flow. It does seem that there's an argument there that we need to begin the process, because I know that it takes months and months and months to bring people on, but it does seem that there's a need there for some consistent level of DSA plan reviewers that can be available to help meet this need.
Yes, we are keeping an eye on those projects, and we will request additional staff if necessary.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, with that, thank you, Ida. I don't see any questions coming in, so that's great. Thank you very much. I appreciate you being here today, and happy 2025 as we all work together and we move forward with that. So thank you, Ida. We'll move on in our
Thank you.
schedule, and we have Brian LePlask I see Brian came on from Office of Public School Construction. And so there you are, Brian. Good morning, Brian. Welcome.
Good morning. Yeah, that was a nice picturesque place there up on the slide for a minute. That looks like a nice place to be.
Yeah.
Um, Wanted to wish everybody a happy new year. It's going to be a busy year in our program. I have a lot of updates today, so I'll try to get through them pretty quickly. Um, Especially the first 6 to 8 months of 2025, we're anticipating a lot of public meetings. Very much looking forward to them, getting them kicked off. We've been doing a lot behind the scenes to prepare for them. Um, have many teams working on many different items. As you all know, there's quite a few things that came out of Prop 2 that are going to need some attention. So we're eager to get those underway. In fact, our first meeting is coming up next Thursday on the 30th. At that meeting, we're going to be discussing financial hardship and bridge financing, eligibility for schools on military installations, changes to eligible expenditures, changes to the SFP matching share for certain districts, and then also the 75-year-old building replacement criteria. Those are the first 5 topics we're bringing forward. Some of them are a little more straightforward than others. But then we're turning around, and on February 13th, we're going to have 6 new topics, different topics. And at that meeting, we're planning on bringing forward first blush on 5-year master plan, energy efficiency supplemental grants, minimum essential facility supplemental grants, transitional kindergarten supplemental grants, as well as the new small high school district provisions, and also interim housing for natural disasters. So a lot coming forward in the next couple of weeks. We're proceeding with these in parallel. So we're not going through one set of topics and then another. We're going to be working on basically all of them at the same time. But you can expect them to kind of follow in that same fashion. So second go around, third go around of each of these topics will be spaced out somewhere between 4 and 6 weeks after the first meetings. So they should continue in the same kind of the same order, but they're going to be kind of in parallel to each other. And like I said, some of them are straightforward and maybe we can resolve everything in one meeting, but I think the majority of these topics are going to take 2 or 3 or even more meetings to get finalized. Our plan for those first meetings is to just essentially introduce the topics and explore what we think is needed to accommodate them. But primarily, we want to spend most of our time looking for input and feedback from all of you, all of our partners and stakeholders. And so it'd be really great if you could take the time to review the items prior to the meeting, especially the topics that you're the most interested in, so that you're ready to go. I mean, we are going to do presentations and we'll present the topics, but the idea, especially in these first meetings, is just to get the conversation going and making sure that we're all kind of on the same track and going in the same direction with them. The second meetings and then the subsequent ones after that are going to be more focused on regulation and form changes, and just making sure that we're carefully considering all the feedback we get and making any alterations that are necessary based off of that. We're also still proceeding with a couple of other topics that are, I'd say they're adjacent to the Prop 2 changes, for second round mod funding, and also the continuation of our meetings on facility hardship and seismic mitigation regulation updates. I think those are right now, we're tentatively scheduled for February 20th. So rapid fire meetings coming up. But we'll see exactly how all that pans out. The second group of meetings for the topics that we're presenting on January 30th and then February 13th will probably happen again around mid-March. We do need time to consider all the feedback we get and make sure that we're addressing everything, and then get the items, in ready to go. So we're hoping 4 to 6 weeks, between each one, and that's what we're planning on for now. All of them will be held both in person and via Zoom. We're going to be recording and archiving them like we always do. So if you can't make the actual meeting, you can look at them afterwards. But if you want to attend in person, we're going to have space available at the Ziggurat building in West Sacramento at our headquarters. It's going to be, we'll have information on the website, but it's going to be it's called the executive dining room, and it's behind the cafeteria down on the first floor. So when you enter the building, you go around the elevators and go past the cafeteria, and you'll go back to a room back there. And we'll have seating in there, and then we'll also have it on Zoom. So trying to make sure that we reach the biggest audience possible. There's going to be a lot of topics at each meeting, and so we're going to try to get through as many as we can. I think I'm pretty optimistic that we'll be able to do it, but it just really depends on if we need time to discuss maybe some of the nuances. I think the first meeting will be okay, but the subsequent meetings where we're getting a little more into the nitty gritty of the regulations and of the form changes, it might take some more time to make sure that everyone's comfortable with how we're going, with how everything's going, and exactly what we're doing. So I think that's pretty much it on the stakeholder meetings. Like I said, a lot of activity. And first on my list is to get as much feedback as we can get. So that's our goal, especially in these first meetings, is to get as much information from all of you that we can get. So really looking forward to that. Some of my other colleagues talked about California wildfires. As I'm sure you've seen, there's been some really terrible results from those. And I'm actually just been monitoring a new fire, unfortunately, called the Hughes Fire. And it's in the last about 45 minutes, it's gone from 100 acres to over 500 acres. And that's in the Castaic Lake area. So if you don't already have it on your phone, there's a really helpful application called Watch Duty. And you can program in what counties you want to follow, I think up to 4 at a time. And that's where I've been getting my information from on the fly. But I don't know that area too well myself, but I'm hoping they can get it contained quickly and not let it spread too far like these other fires have. So from what I can see, they're putting a lot of people on it. There's like 50 engines out there and a bunch of crews and stuff. So I'm hoping they'll be able to get that under control. In relation to the fires that have already occurred, I'm sure that everybody saw that on January 7th, the governor proclaimed a state of emergency for LA and Ventura counties. And then subsequently on the 14th, there was an executive order, N625 is the number of the order. And that's just to aid school districts and initiate coordination from multiple agencies. I've had the opportunity to attend some of those meetings, and I can tell you that the response has been really quite amazing. I've been very impressed with all of the help that everybody has offered, and the school district personnel and those that are affected are just really wonderful people. And so many state agencies, nearby school districts, and experts from all the different fields have shown up and been really willing to lend a hand and assist. And so that's really great to see. OPSC is conducting coordinated outreach with 7 other agencies to assist in potential funding applications or interim housing or any other assistance that we can help with to get those kids back in classrooms, get those districts back on their feet again and moving forward. We'll continue to update everybody. But from what I've heard, they're on their way to getting at least, I think there's been some virtual classes that maybe have already started, and they're working on finding solutions for those kids and those families. So our thoughts are with everybody, and we'll continue to do as much as we can in support of that. As part of the governor's budget, there's some OPSC positions, at least in the proposed budget. There's 2 key items that I want to talk about. The first one is $12.2 million and 14 positions in 2025-26. And that's part of the first annual investment of a total of just under 60 million, 59.4 over a 5-year period for the SIP in support of Prop 2 and the programs and staff that will be needed to implement all of that and get everything processed in a timely fashion. So we're encouraged by that. While it's not final yet, these were just included in the January proposed budget, which is a good sign for us. And then additionally, actually 2 more items. There was $356,000 for ongoing and various funds and 2 positions for other DGS divisions. And that's to help support and implement Prop 2. And then lastly, the last thing that was in that budget that was of note, at least to me, was that it continues the annual rate of processing of 1.5 billion per year. And so we noticed all those things, and we're hoping that we're going to monitor, I should say, what happens in the May revise and then the final budget in June. And then to the SAB today, one item of note is the annual adjustment to grants. Our 2025 construction cost index we're bringing that forward. It's a 0.49% increase. And so that will be applied to all projects approved in the 2025 calendar year if the SAB approves it. So just to reiterate, and lastly, and I was going to say, perhaps most importantly, I'm going to say it again. OPSC and me personally, we're very much looking forward to working through all the improvements to our program. It's been a long time since we've had these kinds of changes to our program, and I'm really excited to get these new proposals underway and collaborate with everybody. We really need your input. We need that collaborative spirit, and we're putting our best foot forward and have been working very hard on these items. A lot of hours, a lot of staff time, a lot of focus and concentration on making sure that we're getting them right. I don't have any doubts that's what we're going to get back from all of you, and I think we're going to get really good results, but I just wanted to express how important I think the next 6 or so months are and how much we need to rely on each other to make the program the best it can be. So looking forward to that very much, and thanks for having me here today.
Great. Thank you, Brian. I truly appreciate that commitment to collaboration. And those of us that work with cash and work in the school facilities industry, I'll speak for them kind of globally, that we're all, committed to making the program the best it can possibly be and improving upon those areas where there's improvement. I did have one quick question related to the stakeholder meetings that'll be happening. For those of us that'll be attending via Zoom, will they also have an opportunity to engage? Will there be opportunity for comments from those that are attending remotely? The way I read it, it seemed a bit vague. I just wanted to confirm that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're gonna have full ability to do that, and yeah, I mean, we don't expect there to be too many people in person. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I think the majority of our attendance will be via Zoom, most likely. Anyway, everybody's really busy these days, and so yeah, absolutely, we'll accommodate that and make sure that we're getting as many of that as many as the questions as we can tackled through Zoom and both in person too.
Great, thank you.
I see Jessica's question there, and it looks like she's. Let's see. Let me read it really quickly. I think what Jessica's asking is if projects that are on the workload list or the ARBA list, the applications received beyond bond authority list, will be moved up and be able to participate in the set asides for small school districts. I think that's one of the key questions, and I don't mean to give a vague answer. I just don't think that we've fully decided that yet. It's not outlined in the statute what we do. Do we bring projects off the list, or do we only set it aside for future projects? And so, not to give a non-answer, but I just don't think that we've settled on that yet. And I think it's something that we all need to talk about. And so that'll definitely be one of the prominent discussion points that we'll have when we bring that topic forward.
Yeah, thank you for that, Brian. I also bring in the question of where do those projects fit on the grandfathering clause, right? The before October 30th versus after October 30th. And does that set aside apply to projects that were submitted prior to October 30th or not? And those are questions that I think we need to resolve during the development process.
Absolutely. Yeah, those are things that we've highlighted in our items, and we've been having lots of discussions internally about all that and trying to sort it out. If you look at the language really carefully, I think it's, we'll see where we go with it. But it's definitely something that we're focused on.
Thank you. So a great question, Jessica, but yet to be determined. And so
sorry
I don't see any more coming in, Brian. So thank you for that great update, and we're looking forward to kicking off these stakeholder engagement meetings very soon on the 30th. So looking forward to it. I'll be there, and hopefully we have a lot of us that'll be there with us. So with that, we'll move on in our agenda, and we're moving on to regulatory, legislative, and maintenance network updates. So we have our wonderful CASH staff that's with us here today. We have Nancy Charas Espinosa, Rebecca Colleen, and Ian Padilla. And I'm not quite sure who's going to go first, but Nancy, Rebecca, or Ian, Whoever's going to
Alan, this is Ian. Happy New Year, first of all. I'm going to bat lead off today with just one item. So thank you very much. And then I'll turn it over to my colleague.
Take it away.
All right. Thank you. Well, of course, on behalf of the Coalition for Adequate School Housing, we also want to acknowledge what our friends, colleagues, and school children have been experiencing as a result of the fires. So obviously, we want to add our support to that as well. Not only in name, however, we, of course, are focusing on the schools and school facilities in particular. As many of you know, Cash has a history of helping out the state and just in general during these times, using some of our unique expertise and resources to help out. Just quickly, I would say that was one of Tom Duffy's best legacies. He has a big and lengthy legacy, but certainly his work on behalf of schools that have been hit by a variety of natural disasters. I know a lot of you are aware of him and other ex-chairs and other folks' work on that with some of the Northern California fires. So, of course, Cash has offered our assistance and our resources and our expertise to all the state agencies and so on, and we stand ready to help as well. Of course, we know there's a lot of issues. Interim housing certainly is one of the most immediate. I know the School Facility Manufacturers Association is working with the appropriate agencies as well to help out. So that's all to say. We also want to say that we're thinking about you, that we're trying to look for opportunities and help out in the process. We think that the agencies, as you can hear today and see today, are doing really good work on this. And so again, we stand ready to help. With that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Rebecca Colleen, and with all her normal updates, I know she has some that are related to this as well. So thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you, Ian. We're going to bridge now to the budget proposal. Brian mentioned some of this, but just one thing that links to the fire response and recovery is that the legislature and governor are considering a number of new budget bills as part of a special session. So special session allows them to move more quickly with urgency in order to address significant issues. There have been a couple of bills that were introduced related to fire response and recovery, as well as the 25-26 budget. And so those are going to be fast tracked through the process. One of those does provide $1 million to expedite planning for rebuilding damaged schools. So $250,000 to DSA and $750,000 to OPSC to provide assistance to LAUSD and to Pasadena USD, and then any charter schools that are within the boundaries of those districts that have been affected by the fires. So those bills are eligible to be taken up as early as tomorrow by the legislature. So I would expect action this week to move those forward in the legislative process. Also connected to budget, so we had the governor's new 25-26 budget released kind of in two parts. He did a preliminary review of the top line messages on January 6th, which was the Monday before the fires. And then on Friday, January 10th, the Department of Finance Director Joe Steppenshaw presented the rest of the budget, went down into a lot of detail on it. Again, that budget was developed before the fires broke out that Tuesday, and so a lot of the presentation was couched in, and then there are all these unknowns that are associated with response and recovery, even though a lot of those expenses should be reimbursed by the federal government. But in the governor's 25-26 budget, he really talked about it being sort of a nothing to see here budget. My characterization, not his, but last year when the legislature and governor adopted the 24-25 budget, they did so with solutions that would also cover the anticipated deficit in 25-26. So they built a 2-year budget with solutions to cover 2 years worth of anticipated budget issues. So the governor has come back and said, look, that worked, and we don't have a deficit larger than what we were already planning for, and therefore we don't need to institute any additional solutions. We did a good job last year. We held the line on education funding, and we made good decisions. So that's his position. The Legislative Analyst's Office has said, yeah, we more or less agree that the deficit in 25-26 has already been accounted for and handled. But of course, we need to be looking in the out years and structural deficits that are looming after 25-26. So on the education side of things, the governor is proposing a 2.43% COLA, so a little bit more than last year, and then new proposal related to a discretionary block grant. So they're calling it the Student Support and Professional Development Discretionary Block Grant, 1.8 billion that would be allocated out to schools to address rising costs and also to help implement recent state programs. So really they're talking about things like professional development for teachers on math and literacy, curriculum, and teacher recruitment and retention strategies. Now, there's also mention in this discretionary block grant about supporting career pathways and dual enrollment consistent with the master plan for career education. And this is something that the governor is really emphasizing in this budget conversation is career planning. There's a new master plan for career education that is imminent, that he signed an executive order to ask that the different agencies come together and update that master plan. And so we're waiting to see what that will contain, but we're really seeing an emphasis both in public, in press conferences, et cetera, and here in the budget on career technical education. Another piece here of interest. Oh, and just a last comment on that discretionary block grant. We had block grant dollars during the COVID pandemic, and those could be utilized for a number of things, including some facilities improvements. So we'll be watching this one closely. I think a question in my mind is, does it stick? Is this sort of a placeholder to see where the economy goes, what's happening with revenues, what's happening with federal policies, and is this sort of a one-time idea that is not an ongoing commitment that could then be the dollars utilized if needed when we get to the May revision. So another item just to mention for everybody is universal transitional kindergarten. So I know we've been so excited about the implementation of that program. Well, 25-26 is the year for full implementation. If you've got a 4-year-old if you've got a kiddo that turns 4 by September 1st, they will now be eligible to attend TK full implementation. By the way, I've got one of those. He turns 4 in 2 weeks. So we're excited to look at our options for him to move over to Big Kids School and transitional kindergarten. And I am looking for all those tiny toilets when I look at the different classrooms, by the way. But this is an exciting moment. We also have a proposal that would reduce that ratio. So we've been waiting to see when the ratio goes from 12-1 down to 10-1. And so the budget does include $1.5 billion of additional support to help get to that 10-1 ratio that we've been waiting for. On the facility side, Alan is absolutely right. Brian mentioned this as well. The $1.5 billion in planned bond sales in 25-26 for the school facility program, with that first bond sale being anticipated in the fall of 2025. This was even highlighted during the January 10 press conference when the director of finance talked about going back to those normal levels of the 1.5 billion per year. Of course, given where we are with the backlog, we'd love to see more than 1.5 billion, but we're really excited to see those Prop 2 dollars starting to roll out to important projects very shortly. And then last couple of things on facilities, there is money being proposed in the Prop for climate bond implementation for urban greening, $46.8 billion. This would be creation and expansion of green streets, parks, and schoolyards. So we'll look at that more closely as the details become available. And then the last thing is a renewal of a program that was funded in 2022, the Kitchen Infrastructure and Training Program, $150 million in one-time money proposed. This would be for specialized kitchen equipment, infrastructure, and training to support schools in providing more freshly prepared meals and using local ingredients. So those are the key facilities items that we're watching. Next steps in this process is the legislature will be reviewing the governor's budget proposals in detail over the next few months. There will be lots of discussion in budget subcommittees. The legislature will have their own priorities, and we're working towards an updated budget release from the governor in May. That's the May revision. And then ultimately, everyone is working towards passage of the 25-26 budget by June 15th, which is the statutory deadline. In years past, I know we've kind of questioned whether or not they'll hit that deadline, but in today's world, I believe very strongly that they will, because if they don't get paid. So we'll work towards that deadline. And with that, I will pass it to my colleague, Nancy. Thanks.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. It's still morning for a few more minutes. I want to talk with you about a few different topics. I was going to talk about the Prop 2 implementation meetings, stakeholder meetings, but of course, Brian covered that really well. Thank you so much for that comprehensive update about everything that's on the agenda and how those meetings are going to work, so that now we know to prepare beforehand so that we can really maximize the opportunity to provide OPSC with that input that they are looking for. We also want to encourage folks to attend the different cash committee meetings at the annual conference, to use those as an opportunity to discuss some of the pressing Prop 2 implementation issues and to help us really make sure that we focus and prioritize our advocacy strategy appropriately during that stakeholder process. And throughout the conference, OPSC and other state agency reps are going to be available. So that's yet another way that they are trying to be more accessible to all of us, and we appreciate that. John mentioned SB 937, and I don't really have an update for you at this point. There is no legislative action as of yet that would change anything with respect to SB 937. This was that bill on the timing of collection of impact fees that may or may not apply to your school district, depending on the conversations you have with your legislative council. I don't anticipate any legislative action, at least none that would help. So given the climate that in the legislature, if there were further action, it's not likely to be anything that actually makes it easier for us to collect impact fees. It could in fact go in the other direction. So obviously this is an area that we continue to monitor, and if there are any developments, we will bring them to you. In terms of the status, I would say the ball is in school district's court at this time. Work with your legal counsel and make sure that whatever position you take, whatever interpretation you make, is one that you're prepared to defend if your local planning agency interprets that law differently. And with that, I will switch to another issue causing a bit of consternation out there. The Civic Center Act, which I think John also mentioned. So this is it's a two-parter of authorization. There's an authorization for school districts to charge fees for community use under the Civic Center Act. And the two-parter is that there's an operational fee and a facilities fee, specifically for maintenance, repair, restoration, and refurbishment of facilities used by the public. The authorization for the facilities piece of that expired. It sunsetted on January 1st. The authorization to charge fees for operational costs, that's things like sending out your custodial staff, things of that nature, that still continues. A solution is in the works. We hope to have an announcement and a bill across the desk to resolve this soon, hopefully well in advance of the bill introduction deadline, which is next month. And as soon as there's something official that we can share with you, we will. What can you expect as we work on this? The timeline for restoration of this authorization is somewhere in the latter half of 2025. So if successful, under the normal legislative timeline, the legislative session ends in mid-September. That's when bills would be passed, and then the governor would have 30 days to sign or veto that bill. That's the normal timeline. We are, of course, going to be pedal to the metal all the way through, trying to expedite as much as possible. But that is going to be kind of the range. It's going to be somewhere in the latter half of 2025, just to give you a sense of what to prepare for. And that is all I have for my cash update. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Nancy, Ian, and Rebecca for the great updates. About the only question, there was a little bit of chat about some tiny toilets that I found funny, but thank you, Julie Bush, for reminding us about, and Rebecca for those little teeny toilets that we put into those TK centers. But there was a question about, do we think that the fires may delay some of the funding availability? And unfortunately, we don't have Brian LePask here to answer that. But honestly, as we move forward, I do not believe that that's going to be a hindrance as we move into the allocation of these new Proposition 2 dollars. We're lucky enough that Proposition 2, it was thoughtful enough that Proposition 2 included the ability of the State Allocations Board to allocate dollars for relocatable housing to assist school districts in areas of declared emergency. So we do have a lot more flexibility now as we move forward compared to the prior program. But overall, I do not believe that the fires are going to have a major hindrance on the ability of the State Allocations Board to allocate dollars and move projects forward off the list. So, but that would be a great question to bring to the stakeholder engagement meeting as well. So with that, thank you all. I don't see any more questions popping into the chat, but I did want to move on to the School Energy Coalition. Thank you, and really call Nancy Charles Espinoza back to maybe give us a little bit of an update on the School Energy Coalition.
Happy to do that. So the School Energy Coalition had a great January meeting, including an update on the Expanded Energy Efficiency Supplemental Grant from Brian. Thank you, Brian, for doing that. Michael Watanabe was also there, and they were tag teaming questions. It was very, very helpful. For February, we are diverting from our regular meeting schedule because we are conducting our meeting and a workshop at the CASH Annual Conference. Both are on February 26th, which is the last day of the conference. The workshop it is called School Energy 101, an introduction to school energy projects. This is sort of our effort to do back to basics and really put ourselves in the shoes of someone who is new to being responsible for energy issues at a school district. And our board members are trying to pour everything into it that you would need to know, breadth and depth. This is intended as a sequence. So this is 101, and we will be working on 102 later in the year. So we really encourage anyone who is new or honestly even mid-career. I think you're going to learn something. As we were working on the planning, we were learning from each other. So there's a lot of great information that's going to be shared. Following the workshop is going to be a meeting that Ida Claire has graciously agreed to attend, and I will be providing a legislative and budget update. But the meat of this and what we're really excited about is Ida and her colleagues, and we're even going to have a guest from the Energy Commission talking about how school districts can navigate compliance with the Green Building Code without hopefully losing their existing tariff rate. So how do we not get knocked out of NEM 2.0? How do we not lose our pre-existing NEMA and get knocked into these tariffs, which end up costing our districts a lot more money? So that's what the discussion is going to be. Pretty timely topics, and we hope to see you all there. That's all for me.
Great. Thank you, Nancy, for the quick update. Yeah, very important as we all move towards this more sustainable future, ensuring that we're passing laws and regulations that help support that to make it economically feasible as we go forward. So thank you. So there was a quick question that popped in from Greg. It says, has there been any discussion anywhere regarding the power outages due to the weather by utility providers and the need for grants and funding for school-wide emergency backup generators? There are schools in Chino that have lost power for 10 to 12 days. I'm not aware of any discussions about grants from either the utility providers or from the Energy Commission for backup power funding. And Nancy, maybe you're aware of discussions that may be happening about that?
I'm not aware of anything specific with respect to generators, but we do talk about this issue, this problem of unreliable grids and public safety power shutoffs quite a bit. We generally tend to focus that on expanding support for solar and storage, but I will keep an eye out to see if there's, particularly in light of what's going on right now, that honestly is an avenue that we should explore. So I will let you all know if I find anything on that.
I think this is a great question because as we begin to investigate some of the fires, it seems to be that there's still some utility, uh, at least responsibility there, or some indication that there may be some issues with utility power. And I think that this issue of losing power during major storm events is becoming a bigger and bigger issue across our state. So it definitely is an area where we need to have further conversation about how we're going to prepare for that eventuality. So thank you, Nancy, and everybody in the Energy Coalition for continuing to advocate for the needs of our schools. Thank you. So with that, we'll move into the Cash Federal Network, and we have Ian Padilla maybe for a quick update on what's happening at the federal level. We have a new administration that just took office, was it the day before yesterday, right? And
Yes.
so new happenings in Washington.
That is right. First of all, we're looking at probably, hopefully, traveling out to Washington, D.C. Maybe in March, something like that, in the early part of the year. We want to touch bases and continue to make progress on all the issues that we've made progress in the past in terms of particularly some of the energy programs, the direct funding programs, some of those pieces that will help us with some of those issues that we've talked about, water quality, things like that. So we're going to continue to follow up and basically see where we are more broadly. With any administration, of course, we're going to go back there and continue to make the case for a federal role in support of school facilities. That is one of the big accomplishments of this effort that we do here, and we'll continue to do that. So stay tuned, but we're going to go out there and continue this effort. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ian. Yeah, I typically think that trip is sometime in the spring, correct? So
That's
it'll be
right.
something that that we offer to many of you to attend, and the lobbyist trip to go out there and really talk to our elected leaders in Washington about why it's important to continue to invest in the infrastructure and needs of our schools. So thank you, Ian, and everybody at the Cash Federal Network.
Yep.
Good. So with that, I think we're going to move on in our schedule, and we're going to talk about the 46th Annual Conference on School Facilities, which is just a month away. So Tom Pace, take it away.
Yeah, and just to touch on power safety shutoffs, I in San Bernardino we get affected by them quite often, and it's something that I have dragged my feet on for years. I know that they happen every year, and I know that there's never enough money for generators and backup power. And, I think it wasn't until these fires that I realized just the effect, the learning loss that comes from if you've been in a classroom without power. And I think, unfortunately, no one's coming to the rescue there, that's something that, for the time being, that local districts are going to have to prioritize and make it a part of their practice. And I'd say, Alan, given the learning loss, it's probably best practice to start analyzing wildfire prevention, including emergency backup power as it relates to your schools, whether you want to rent them and have standby POs or if you want a permanent infrastructure in place for that. But that's just one man's thoughts on the subject as one who's been dealing with it for several years now. But as it relates to the annual conference, I always start with the National Day, and today is National Appreciation or Celebration of Life Day. And I think given all of the destruction that's occurring globally and locally and regionally for those of us in Los Angeles, I think it's a good reminder of the celebration of life that we do have, that, although destruction is hard to take, it's a reminder that how valuable life is, and to do something kind for someone else. And on this day in 1984, the Macintosh computer was unveiled at a commercial for the Super Bowl. So it seems like a very short time ago that Apple arrived in my life, but it's actually been since 1984. But back to the annual conference. Our annual conference, February, 24th through the 26th, but I'm going to highlight a couple key things that are occurring on the 23rd. We have our golf tournament at the Westin on the 23rd. There are still sponsorships available for that. And foursomes available if you'd like to play in the golf tournament. That evening at the Thompson just opened, we're going to have what we're calling the pre-Cash Bash. Cash is sponsoring a kickoff to the conference where you can come out, socialize, and get to know others within the field of school facilities, and both in the private and public sectors. The 24th through the 26th, excited to announce that Dr. Rick Rigsby is our keynote speaker. If you haven't looked him up, please look him up. He's going to do fantastic. Give a glimpse into the world of servant leadership and the impacts that education has in individuals' lives. There are still 5 booths available and still sponsorships available. So if you procrastinate in life like I do, there is still room for you in the sponsorship and booth arena. Also know that we're going to have a heavy focus on Prop 2 and the changes of Prop 2 from master planning to grants. So there is professional development learning in all areas of school facilities, but we're going to particularly focus on Prop 2 this year. So with that, Alan, those are kind of my updates, and I can't believe that this annual conference is upon us. Seemed like just yesterday we were announcing it, and really just looking forward to seeing everyone in beautiful Palm Springs.
Absolutely. And thank you, Tom, and all the folks that put a lot of hard work and effort into planning and developing this conference. We say it somewhat tongue in cheek every year, but every year it just becomes better and better and more well thought out. So I want to thank you. I want to thank all of your team and everybody that's been involved in really developing and putting together this conference. Great work. And I'm excited that it's here. It's just a short 4 weeks away. So,
well, we've had 80-mile-an-hour winds for the past week and a half. So if you do come to Palm Springs, hopefully we don't blow off the face of the earth as we have been this past month in February. So you may want to look at the wind conditions before you come down.
Great, thanks. Looking forward to seeing everybody at the annual conference in Palm Springs on the 24th, 5th, and 6th, 23rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. So thank you everyone who helped put that on. So we'll move into the last couple pieces of our presentation today. Just a reminder of the Job Exchange and People's Choice. This is a resource that's available to you as a cash member, where you can either post your RFPs or your job needs, or if you're looking for a job, it's an opportunity for you to see what may be out there. So take advantage of the Cash Job Exchange and People's Choice page to be used to really get a brighter or a wider exposure to folks in our industry. And we'll move on to the last slide here, which is a reminder that our next Cash Day will be an in-person and virtual event. It'll be at the Capitol Event Center in Sacramento on March the 26th from 11 until 12:15. So please plan to be there. It's a wonderful experience in person. We are trying to push to bring people back in person. It's an opportunity for you to engage with both district individuals as well as our private members, our private associate members. So it's a great opportunity to get out to Sacramento, attend the state allocations board meeting, and become a part of the work that we do. And then lastly, take a moment to plug again tomorrow web shop, January the 23rd, about bond delivery methods and procurement options. So if you haven't already signed up for that, you can still sign up for that. That'll be tomorrow, January the 23rd. We're going to have a lot of industry professionals that will be talking to us about how to actually make a lot of this work come to reality. So the different options that you have with the delivery methods. So with that, we've reached the end of our presentation today. I want to take a moment and thank all of our presenters, the folks from MWH and Cash, our state agency partners, DSA, CDE, OPSC. Thank you all for taking time out of your day to be here and tell us about all the great work that you're doing in the partnerships. Appreciate all the attendees for being here today and taking part of the work that we do. Thank everyone for taking time today, and I want to wish you all a wonderful rest of your day. Be safe, and we will see you next time. Thank you very much.